As of 2020, there are 41,415 endangered species, including the 3 diverse animals that you see in front of you. 16,306 of these species have been threatened with extinction. The total number of extinct animals are 785. 65 of these species can be found only in captivity. Over the course of the last 500 years, humans have pushed about 800 species to the brink of extinction. So today I'm going to be talking about the significance of zoos and all that they do with research, with species preservation, and the impact that they have on our economy as businesses. So many zoos have the central goal really of boosting dwindling endangered species populations and releasing them back into the wild. They use a program called SSP to do this, which stands for Species Survival Plan, and it was created by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. I have a video that I'm going to show you guys that's going to kind of educate you a little bit more on who they are and what they do.
There really are no animal problems. It's people problems.
We are the Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
The zoos and aquariums are frankly the gateway to conservation for 200 million Americans every year.
The AZA sets standards for animal care and welfare, for conservation, for education.
The association is creating new standards, is creating new frontiers.
The need to have sanctuary that has accreditation, that meets standards, is extraordinarily important.
The AZA can do things that we can't do ourselves. They can certainly advocate on our behalf.
There are so many success stories, from California condors to black-footed ferrets,
The bald eagle, the Florida manatees.
species that would not live among us if it wasn't for zoos and aquariums.
My biggest goal working with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums is to make sure that the tens of millions of American children every year that go through leave not only caring about wildlife, but feeling empowered to do something about it.
Most people are never going to have the opportunity to go on a river trip on the Amazon, but they can visit an accredited zoo or aquarium and experience those animals and grow to care about them.
We're really beginning, I think, to see a movement of people, in particular young folks, that understand that we've got to protect the oceans, that we've got to protect species, and that our lives really depend on that.
Just by visiting, just by being a member of that organization, you're fulfilling one of the largest investments in global conservation for species in your neighborhood and around the world.
Be involved. Don't be a passive visitor.
We are
We are the Association of Zoos and Aquariums.
volunteer.
Visit.
Engage.
There is amazing work going out there.
Please join us.
So as you guys saw, the AZA really has the goal of educating its visitors on the importance of wildlife and how we can better protect them. The SSP program that they use, they've created it to monitor the breeding of these specific endangered species, which need to be monitored for multiple reasons. One of these reasons is because when they release these animals, they need to be able to be self-sustaining. They've been captive raised, and when they release these endangered animals back into their natural habitats, they're not going to have the resources, they're not going to have the help that they do in these zoos. So it's really up to the zoos to make sure that they are self-sustaining, that they can find habitats, that they can find food, that they can find shelter, that they are able to socialize correctly. So it's up to the zoos and to these programs to make sure that that happens. Another thing that's really important when monitoring these genetics, it's really important to monitor because they need to know where to place these animals demographically. Overpopulation and underpopulation can actually be really detrimental to the survival of the species. So it takes time and research to know this, and through these programs, these zoos are able to do this. They're able to know where to place the animals. So another really large reason that it's important for them to monitor the breeding of this is because genetic diversity is essential in the survival of these animals. When two parents have different alleles, and each one of them gives an allele to the baby. This is a Punnett square, and it is just kind of showing the different genes and the different combinations that you can get with different parents, and the possibilities that the baby will have different genes. It's super important because genetic diversity means that if one animal gets sick, if it's genetically similar to another animal, the other animal will probably die. So genetic diversity allows for protection against these diseases. It also protects against environmental changes. So if the environment changes, it allows the species that has different genetics to better evolve and to better adapt to its surrounding and to these changes. Zoos use these SSPs so that they can better understand the wildlife biology. They really use it to educate, to spread awareness, and to raise funds to support things such as habitat protection among these animals. Along with all of this research that they do and all of this genetic boosting, they also need to provide for the animals. They have to do everyday things such as food, such as socialization, habitats, just within their zoos. So we're going to look at the elephant, which is typically one of the most expensive animals to keep in a zoo. Dallas says, we're going to look at just the feeding. The Dallas Zoo says that they feed one of their elephants 125 pounds a day, and it costs about $15,000 a year for just one elephant. And when you multiply that by multiple elephants, or when you multiply that by multiple animals, the Dallas Zoo actually puts together about 200 different individualized diets. The diets are super important for animals, for their breeding, for their lifestyle, and when you put together the time and research that just goes into feeding the animals, it proves that obviously zoos need a lot of funding. And so that's kind of the next question that I'm going to answer, which is how do the zoos get their money and how do they function as a business? So the first way they get their money obviously is through admission. The San Diego Zoo charges about $58 for 12 and up tickets. They get about 4 million visitors per year, but even with all of these factors, it's not enough to cover it, and there's other ways that they can make money. One of these ways is through merchandise, and because of the format, it's a little bit difficult to show you guys, but these are some of the things that I've gotten in the past just from zoos and from aquariums. I tend to try to stay away, just hats and bracelets and stuff, but I usually tend to try to stay away from gift stores just because I know I can be an impulse buyer, but whenever I buy at a zoo or an aquarium, I remind myself that the proceeds are most likely going towards the salaries of people that are taking care of the animals, to habitats, to the feeding of these animals, and to the development of their species. A business tactic that a lot of these places will use is that they will make you walk through, you probably noticed this if you've been to a zoo or an aquarium, they make you walk through the gift shop to get to the exit, which is actually a really great business strategy. It forces you, it affects impulse buyers, it affects people with kids that are asking their parents, and it's really great. It gets them a lot more buys. With food, it's another thing. You don't really have access to any food outside of the parks, outside of the zoos or aquariums. It's something that they can charge overpriced for, and as much as that kind of is hard for us, it goes towards salaries, it goes towards the animals. So even with all of this is actually not enough to cover what the animals need and the funding that the zoo needs. Zoos as a business, they also get funding from external parties and from city and state governments. So zoos as businesses actually have a really significant impact on the economy. The money that they spend on research, the money they spend on construction, it has what's called a multiplier effect on the economy. The AZA has statistics that show that the zoos and aquariums across America have contributed $16 billion in economic activity, contribution to GDP, $4.7 billion in personal earnings, salaries and wages, and 142,000 jobs. So kind of to conclude, I just want to talk about just zoos overall. I think that they really contribute to, we can see that zoos really contribute to animals, to species preservation, and to protecting these endangered, which is really significant. It's something that we really should be trying to work towards as humans and as just a people, to preserving the environment and these animals. And zoos actually are significant as businesses. They really help boost the economy in a lot of great ways. And you can support these zoos by going out and having fun and purchasing admission and seeing these great animals. And that is my presentation.